Virginia's lieutenant governor won a historic victory in 2021, and now there's talk of Winsome Earle-Sears becoming the country's first black female governor. We'll see. She's a woman of strong faith, and in her new book, How Sweet It Is, Defending the American Dream, she recounts how the Lord has led her through the ups and downs of her extraordinary life.
I, Winsome Earle-Sears.
Winsome Earle-Sears not only became Virginia's lieutenant governor in 2021, she became the first woman of color and first immigrant to reach statewide office in Virginia history. Born in Jamaica, she came to the U.S. at age 6 and joined the Marines right after high school. In her new memoir, How Sweet It Is, Earle-Sears recounts how she came to know the Lord as a young mom and how he's seen her through raising a family, starting a business, the death of her oldest daughter and granddaughters, and the roller coaster life of politics. As a Regent University grad and emerging conservative, she first felt God calling her to run for office in 2001. She entered the Virginia House of Delegates after defeating a longtime incumbent. Next, she also felt the call to run for Congress and campaign as a write-in candidate for Senate, 2 races she did not win.
I believe any time that you obey the Lord, you always win, no matter the outcome.
In 2021, she rebounded as the underdog in Virginia's lieutenant governor race. A former State Board of Education member, she seized on parental concerns about schools as her primary issue. Her momentum and eventual victory helped to create a red wave in Virginia.
How sweet it is!
In her new book, she credits the Lord for leading her every step. Now many are wondering, what's next?
And now we know why the book is called How Sweet It Is. Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earle-Sears joins us now. Welcome back to the 700 Club.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
We're thrilled you're here. So one of the most captivating parts of your book, your father comes to the U.S. in the early 60s with $1.75, and now his daughter is the lieutenant governor of Virginia. That's a God story.
It is. I mean, it's a miracle. I can't even say the word because it's so awesome. Just imagine 7 quarters. Yeah. So here he is, a foreigner in a foreign land, and he comes at the height of the civil rights movement, just 17 days before Dr. King gave his I Have a Dream speech. And by the way, Dr. King, when he came to Jamaica, did say that this is the place where he felt most like a man. So that was just so awesome to us. And so my life just seems to be so intertwined with him. Yes.
And it's a fascinating life. And in fact, when you grew up, you kind of, I don't want to say bounced around, but it was Jamaica, New York City, a little back and forth. And you even in your book describe the fragrance of New York City. I mean, you really bring us there. Did living in New York and Jamaica back and forth, I mean, it give you a boldness, a toughness?
Well, I like to think that I was just raised that way. I was raised to succeed. There is no failure. In fact, my grandfather, I heard tell the older grandkids, because I was so young then, there is nothing that beats a try but a failure. And if you failed, it's because you tried. And then you try again and try again. He said this word can't should be taken out of the dictionary. There is no such word. So you grow up hearing that, and you know that you have no excuse. And because my father came, again, at the height of the civil rights movement, just 17 days before Dr. King gave his speech, what could I tell my father is the reason that I failed? I can't say it's because I'm black. I can't say it's because we're poor. I can't say it's because we're foreigners, because he was all those things, and yet he succeeded. And here I am, second in command in the former capital of the Confederate States.
And a Marine. Now, that teaching from your family helps explain, I guess, why you joined the Marines. But as you tell in your book, when you were joining the Marines, which gave you more toughness, you at first said, what am I doing here?
Yes, yes. I mean, well, you know, because my grandmother died and I felt my whole world died because, I don't know, grandparents just have this extra special love for you. And when I looked at her in the casket, I was 18 years old. I was on my way to college, and I thought, there's no way I can go to college. Just no way. I had my books ready, my curriculum, everything. And I thought all the life that she'd lived, what is the purpose of life if you're just going to die? And of course, I know now, you know, because she raised us as Christians, and so we understand. She's in heaven. She's having a glorious time. But I didn't understand that then, and now I know. And so I felt I needed some discipline and toughness, and so the Marines would do it for me. And America had been so good to my family.
What was that Marine experience like for you?
Well, it was tough. I mean, you know, it is the Marine Corps after all, and the first thing they tell you is, we never promised you a rose garden. And but I learned leadership there. Sure, I saw it in my family, but I learned even more leadership. I understood, for example, that, you know, you don't eat until your men, for example, eat if you're in leadership. I understand that you have to give of self. You know, there is sacrifice after all, and we're talking about war, and you have to be able to trust people. I have to be able to trust my leaders that you mean the best for us, that you have the most information that will get us through, and I have to understand that some of us may die, but we die to self, we die for others. There is purpose in it.
Isn't it interesting how your time in the Marines prepared you for what you're doing now?
Well, it's true, you know, and you know, we're talking about leadership, and you know, there is this fear. We're built with fear, after all, and the Lord tells us we must overcome that. I'll tell you, for example, we learn of David. In 1 Samuel 21, we hear of a different David. It's not the David who killed bears and lions, and by the way, I'm going to kill you too, Goliath. No, this David was running from Saul for his life, and then he ran away to a foreign country, and he was afraid that that king might kill him. That's what it said, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, this David, the David, you know, we don't hear about that David. It's the fear of man, and Samuel had it too, Samuel the prophet in 1 Samuel 16. So we have to overcome that fear. It's always going to be with you, but you have to overcome it. Take the insults. You may lose your job. You may not know how to pay your mortgage, but go and do it. The Lord will be with you.
Take the insults, you said. And one thing your book clearly communicates is politics is, it is rough. It is not for the faint of heart. You, over different campaigns, over different decades, have come under significant attack.
Yeah. Well, you know, they say war is hell. Well, campaigns, that word came from war. So a political campaign is no less that, and it's a very public life. But if you are called to it, you will get the strength. God will give you that strength. And that's why I say we're really all in politics, you know. You know that part about of the people, by the people, and for the people? Well, y'all are the people. I'm not the only one in politics. We all are. We have that wonderful opportunity in America to elect our leaders, and we have to fight for what we believe is the righteous thing. Yeah. And if we lose, we don't just, you know, pick up our marbles and go home. We keep in the battle. It's a constant struggle because we are no less than fighting against the darkness. We're making the darkness tremble.
You were out of politics 2 decades,
yes.
Right? When you, I guess the Lord told you, you decided to run for lieutenant governor.
Yeah.
How significant was prayer in that decision and the entire campaign?
Well, you know, I got a Bible verse when I was asking the Lord, you know, is this something I should do? And because I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to be lieutenant governor. You know, it's a bigger stage than I had 20 years before. And the verse was Philippians 1, verse 28. And it's, don't be afraid of your opponents, because in the same way that you are successful with Christ, you must also suffer with Christ. And I thought, I don't have any opponents, and, you know, but I got the Daniel call, and the Daniel call was, are you willing to be eaten? So with all those things put together, and who was Daniel called to be? A political leader, second in command to the emperor.
If I may get to the heart of something here now, prior to this campaign, years before, you endured something horrific.
Yeah.
And that was the death of a daughter and grandchildren.
Yes.
Can you did that just rock your faith?
Absolutely. But, you know, when we got that proverbial 2 o'clock knock on the door, and the 2 sheriffs were standing there, and they said, your daughter is dead, your granddaughter Victoria is dead, and your granddaughter Faith is on life support, you know, I just fell in the chair. My husband was at the door. One of my daughters was coming down the step, and I heard myself say, like Job, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And after that, I was just collapsing everywhere. I mean, you're walking, and you just drop because you never had time to say goodbye. It's not as if they had cancer. I don't want them to have cancer, but at least you know the end and it is inevitable, and so you reminisce and you go over the good times and the bad times, and you laugh and you ask for forgiveness and whatever else. But I had none of that. It was one day they're here and the next they're gone. And so the Lord said to me, "Gone where?" Finish the sentence. And I said, "Oh, gone home." Yes. And then when people would say, "You lost your children," I would say, the Lord said to me, "Lost? Don't you know where they are?" "Oh, they're in heaven." You know, so I see death a whole lot differently now. Finish the sentence. They're not gone where they're lost. They're not. Yes, it's a tragedy, but really, they're in heaven. They're looking into the face of God. They're where I want to be. So, but you know, it can be hard still.
And on this journey, you've had your husband, who, in your book, it's clear you love very much.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're a team. You know, he helps me so much. You know, to be the person that I am. He is the stable, steady voice. You know.
You're not stable, steady in the marriage?
Well, let me tell you, there are times, you know, I think I'm more fire and he's the still waters, you know, and maybe I'll want to keep up a fight, but he won't, you know. I'll ask him something, you know, he say, "Why? Why do we're not going to fight about this," you know, so, yeah.
Well, you talked about fire, and you're a Marine, but also along the way, I mean,
He's also a Marine,
yes,
by the way.
And you saw your grandmother in Jamaica take in a homeless person, right, at one point, and you spent years helping women who were homeless and getting them back on their feet. It's all prepared you for your current job, hasn't it? Yeah,
you know, people think that life is, well, they think that if they get this job, then they will have arrived, or that this other thing, then that's the goal. No, all of life is the journey. You know, it's not this thing. No, you're walking on this path of life, and this happens, and that's part of the experience, and this happens, but you just keep walking. The goal is heaven. And as the Marines told me, we didn't promise you a rose garden, and so the Lord hasn't promised a rose garden to us. He's promised, though, that he will never leave us. He will never forsake us. He will never leave us twisting in the wind, wondering which way to go.
Now, you know, you probably presumed I would ask, there's talk of you as governor in a few years, or running for governor. Anything you want to share on that?
We are focusing this year on 2023. We've got to win the Senate, and we've got to keep the House. That's what is most important right now. We'll think about the other things later. But I would love it if, when I look down from the rostrum, I see more Republicans than the other side, because I think then we will have better plans for our future. We'll be able to get along better, you know. We're not trying to divide people. We're trying to make sure that, you know, the taxes that you pay, they're your money. We want to give them back to you. We want to make sure that businesses want to relocate to Virginia. Businesses, of course, are the job creators. We want to make sure parents have the ability to choose where their children should go to school. Why should that be controversial?
You were so passionate about education in your campaign, and it really made a difference.
Yes, it's what raised my family out of poverty, and education will do that for everyone. You know, there's so many things that we have to consider, and we don't have time to fool around.
Thanks for being with us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
Highly recommend the book. The Lieutenant Governor's book is called How Sweet It Is. It's a great insight into who she is. It's available wherever books are sold.